Hey everyone, welcome to Whispers of Turkish Stars. I've been saving something truly special for you, and you're going to want to stay to the end. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed and tap that like button. It keeps this little corner of the internet alive and buzzing. Istanbul's most awaited gala night wrapped with a moment no one could have predicted, the kind of moment that turns a glittering ceremony into a hush of pure emotion. At the Ataturk Cultural Center, where the country's most admired names from cinema, television, and fashion gathered under one luminous roof, Erkan Merek became the unexpected heartbeat of the night. He walked onto that stage to accept an honor, but what he gave was something far more fragile and personal than a list of thank yous. He arrived in a classic black suit that fit the solemn mood of the evening, composed yet unmistakably stirred. From the instant he stepped onto the red carpet, a few reporters exchanged glances. There was a softness to his gaze that hinted at thoughts not fully hidden. It wasn't tension. It looked like calm acceptance, but with a tide of feeling just beneath the surface. When Erkan's name was called for Best International Actor of the Year, the applause painted the hall with warmth. The moment felt deserved, inevitable even. He's an actor who knows how to hold attention, but this time the silence that followed was earned not by a performance, but by applause. He thanked his fans first, then his team, and then his family. His tone was steady. And then, just as the room's energy seemed ready to settle, his voice shifted. He lowered his gaze for a brief second, like he was steadying a thought that mattered more than the trophy in his hand. When he looked up again, his eyes had a new kind of light. And I need to acknowledge someone who has been a deeply significant part of my life. Hazal. The air changed. Not a breath moved, not a whisper dared to break the moment. Even the snaps of camera shutters sounded softened by the stillness. It was not the expected rhythm of an acceptance speech. It was something closer to truth, spoken in a hall where truth usually hides behind sparkle. He didn't elaborate. No labels, no nostalgia explained. Just one name, placed tenderly after gratitude, and it was enough to set the night on a very different course. Within minutes, clips of that single line spread like a tide on every platform. View counts climbed almost in real time, captions repeating the same stunned sentiment. Erkan spoke about Hazal. Comment threads turned into living rooms, everyone leaning in, everyone remembering. He offered no definitions. Was it love remembered, friendship honored, or simple thankfulness? His eyes carried the answer, and yet the answer refused to be pinned down by words. The way he paused, the slight tremor hiding in his calm, the fullness of his breathing before he said her name. People read it the way you read a letter from an old friend whose handwriting you still know by heart. For many, it was a confession without confession, a sign that Hazal Sabesai still occupies a space in him that never went dark. The cameras, as if guided by instinct, found her instantly. Hazal sat among the guests in a silver gown that shimmered like moonlight caught in fabric, elegant and luminous. When her name floated from his lips, her expression shifted, surprise first, then a quiet swell of feeling, and finally a restrained smile that she tried, but couldn't fully hide. Her eyes were the most honest thing in the room. They softened, then brightened, like someone recognizing a secret message meant only for them. The shared history between them seemed to glow in that glance, not loud, not dramatic, just undeniable. After the ceremony, a few people who happened to be in the right hallway at the right time spoke about a brief encounter. No theatrics, no embrace that begged for headlines. Just a gentle exchange of looks and a few words that no one could fully catch. But even from a distance, those who saw it described a warmth that cannot be faked. You could sense the ease of two people who have traveled through something together and come out on the other side with respect intact. It was the quiet kind of closeness that doesn't ask for attention and doesn't need it. Hours later, Hazal posted a short Instagram story, simple and almost teasing in its restraint. Some words are never forgotten. No names, no photos, no song snippets layered over the text. It didn't need anything else. The meaning rushed to meet the words on its own. Fans understood. Old viewers understood. Even people who pretend not to care about this kind of thing understood. And then the response poured in like rain after a long dry season. Comment sections filled with memories dressed as sentences. People wrote that sometimes love doesn't disappear, it just learns a new shape. Others said they had never seen Erkan so honest, so unguarded, and that the moment ranked as the most touching thing to happen in a year, overflowing with staged gestures. The tone was not the tone of gossip. It was closer to awe. A few psychologists, invited by media outlets to make sense of the collective reaction, called his words an act of emotional maturity, more gratitude than longing, more respect than yearning. Not a plea to reopen a closed door, but a bow to the path they shared. They described it as a gesture of closure that does not sever, a nod that says, "What shaped me will always be part of me." Courage, they added, often looks like this, plain-spoken and calm, stripped of spectacle. Nostalgia, once invited, rarely leaves quietly. By midnight, social feeds were swelling with clips from Adini Sinkoy, the series that introduced millions to their chemistry. Fans resurfaced interviews where their laughter folded into each other, behind-the-scenes footage where their timing seemed effortless, and scenes where a glance carried the weight of a monologue. The old magic felt fresh again, proof that the stories we attach ourselves to never really age, they just wait for a moment like this to breathe anew. Short videos of the speech crossed the 15 million mark before sunrise, an avalanche of reactions driven not by scandal but by sincerity. In the hours after his words, Erkin moved through the venue like someone who has made peace with places that used to ache. There was a lightness to him, the kind that arrives once you stop fighting your own history. He greeted colleagues with ease, took photos without trying to fix the expression in his eyes, and smiled in a way that didn't hide the gentler truth behind the night. It seemed as if he had stepped off a boat he had been balancing on for years, finding steady ground again and deciding to own the story as it truly is. What made the moment so powerful wasn't the shock of hearing Hazal's name, it was the simple way it was said. Not dramatized, not stretched, not decorated, just offered. Some people leave a mark that time cannot dilute. They become part of the landscape inside you, the skyline you measure your days against. And when you carry a name like that with care, saying it out loud becomes less about the person you're saying it to and more about the person you've learned to be. There were a few anxious voices wondering if the remark meant a rekindling, but that missed the point. This never sounded like a spark being lit. It sounded like a candle being honored. Longtime followers of their journey could feel the difference. This wasn't marketing. It didn't carry the shiny edges of a plan. It arrived quietly and left a trail that felt human rather than polished. In a year when the industry has been brimming with staged affection and carefully engineered headlines, one soft sentence managed to outshine entire campaigns. Later that night, a journalist posted that when Erkin stepped off stage, he stood by the side curtain for a few breaths, as if listening to the room calm down before rejoining the flow of the gala. No one asked him to explain. No one needed him to. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let a moment be what it is without dressing it up. As for Hazal, those who observed her after the speech said she carried herself with the same grace she's always been known for. She spoke with a couple of friends, shared a quiet laugh, and moved with ease through the post-ceremony maze of congratulations and photographs. There was no attempt to leverage the moment. No sudden interviews, no offhand comments to fuel speculation. Just dignity, luminous and assured. By morning, the headlines were written in a softer ink. Not a scandal, not a reconciliation rumor stamped in neon, but a story about respect, timing, and the reverberation of a single sentence. People shared their favorite memories from Adini Sinkoy, recalling the rhythm of their scenes, the patience of their storytelling, the way fleeting glances could feel like storms in miniature. Some wrote that watching them then had made them believe in love's ordinary bravery. Others simply said thank you for the reminder that honesty can still sound beautiful. A few fans mused that maybe this is how the best endings arrive, without doors slamming or violins swelling. Not with a definitive conclusion, but with a soft acknowledgement of everything that mattered. In that light, Erkin's line felt less like a closing and more like a careful placement of a keepsake back onto a shelf, dusted and respected. And Hazal's response, so minimal and yet so resonant, felt like a quiet nod across a familiar room. If you strip the night of its glitter, all that remains is a person telling the truth in front of people who weren't expecting it. That's what stays with you. That's what makes the clip worth watching again, not for the analysis, but for the feeling that melts in as it plays. This wasn't a plea. It wasn't a beginning. It was acknowledgement. And maybe that is why the moment will linger, whispered about in dressing rooms and family chats and late-night scrolls. Because it showed that you can be proud of where you stand without burying where you've been. Because it offered a model of grace in an industry that often runs on noise. Because it reminded everyone that some stories, even when they end, keep giving us reasons to be gentle with our own hearts. Thank you for being here with me and reliving this unforgettable night. If you felt what I felt as that room fell into silence, you know this wasn't for spectacle. It was for truth. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a moment like this. This is Whispers of Turkish Stars, and I'll see you in the next one.